Welcome to Surgimate Suite Talk. My name is Justin Rockman, and I'm the VP of Sales and Business Development at Surgimate. Today, we're going to talk about a topic that makes me, and I'm sure many others, a little bit nervous: cybersecurity. In recent weeks, a string of malware and ransomware attacks have impacted hospitals across the United States and also Europe. However, ransomware and malware and cybersecurity is not just a topic that impacts hospitals. It also is something that is directly affecting surgical practices. These stories and statistics are enough to make any surgical practice potentially a little bit nervous about the impact of cybersecurity on their business. However, many have failed to take the appropriate measures to protect their systems and ensure that their patient data is secure and safe. Today, I'm joined by Jack Kustanowitz, who has over 20 years of experience in cybersecurity and software development. Jack is the founder and principal at MountainPass Technology, a software consulting firm with expertise in the area of HIPAA compliance, cybersecurity, and software development. Tell me, Jack, if you walked into any surgical practice, what is the first thing you're looking for to ensure the patient records are safe?
So, hey, Justin, there are a couple of things that we look for, and some of them are things that you can see, and some of them are things we'd have to dig a little bit deeper for. You might want to look at some of the physical aspects of the practice, and you can do that by walking around. You know, is there a security culture where folks are kind of aware of what's going on around? Are people looking for patients or non-staff and staff-only areas? Are there paper records lying around? Those are some of the obvious things that jump out. And then obviously, if you walk behind the desk and you see passwords on Post-its tacked to the monitor, that's one of the old no-nos that unfortunately still see a lot of these days. If you want to dive a little bit deeper, you might look at some of the terminals and make sure that there's current antivirus installed on the various computers, and that when folks walk away from their terminal, that the terminal locks automatically after some number of minutes and requires a password to get back on. And then lastly, there are all the things around policies and procedures. You'd want to make sure that that policies are being followed around termination, hiring, background checks, things like that. And then, of course, what happens if there is a cyber attack? Are backups being done properly, and are there safeguards in place to protect against those sorts of things?
So you have both the physical side and also the back end, and also some of the policies which you have in place. What other policies should practices implement for their staff in order to ward off any cybersecurity threats?
So the first thing you really want to check is make sure that everyone has current antivirus, and that's not just buying a package and forgetting about it, but it's making sure that the signatures are being kept up to date. This is going to protect employees against human error. We all have that moment where we're tired. It's the end of the day, an email comes in that looks real. You click on it, it's a phishing attack, or it might install ransomware on your computer. And antivirus is the main line of defense against those sorts of things happening. And then secondarily, you want to make sure that all of the on-site systems have regular offsite backups. That's if you have PHI stored only on-site at the practice, is that being copied regularly offsite? And that means that if there is an attack and some ransomware locks the server, for example, you have a safe point of reference to return to. With these two in place, you're basically reducing the odds of an attack, and then you're also reducing the impact of an attack if it happens. The other thing that is always very important is to think about passwords. The best practice for a while has been to use a password safe like LastPass or 1Password. This is an evolution away from what folks were suggested that they do for a while, which was to pick some combination of letters and numbers, and typically people would use replace ones with L's or things like that, you know, @ signs for A's. And then if you have to change it every 3 months, change the 1 at the end to a 2 at the end. We all use the same tricks, you know, years ago, and the hackers know all these tricks also. So you want to have a separate random password for each site, and then store those in some sort of a password safe. These LastPass and 1Password and other online password safes, they basically store passwords encrypted on their servers, so that even the companies themselves can't retrieve them. That means if you lose your master password, your passwords are gone. But this is intentional so that if their security is compromised, your passwords are still safe. And as a practice, you can buy a site license so you can manage these centrally, train your staff in how to install the mobile apps and create master passwords. and really start moving passwords off the yellow Post-its and into these central locations.
So today, more and more practices are needing staff to work remotely. So a lot of these policies make sense when you're working in a practice environment, but when staff are working remotely, they're working from home, they're logging into patient health systems, using the home Wi-Fi network. Sometimes you have other family members using the same Wi-Fi network. Is this at all a cause for concern, and what should practices be made aware of to ensure that patient records are always safe?
The answer is it's definitely a cause of concern. And systems that were occasionally used for the occasional work from home environment are now very much, this is the way things are working these days. And what's happened is that that point of vulnerability, which is the home network, is now, you can basically assume that that point of vulnerability is there, and you can bet that there are folks out there trying to take advantage of it. So the way to think about this is that any computer on your home network, including the computers that your spouse uses or that the kids use for homework or for games or things like that, any of those could be the point of attack for a ransomware attack. Someone installs software that gets installed to that computer in the basement that then jumps onto the network, onto the router, onto your work computer, and these are all possible vectors for attacks. So the way that I like to think about it is that any computer on a home network should be protected to the same degree that you would protect a workstation at the office. And that first and foremost includes installing current antivirus on all your home computers. So if one of the kids clicks a link that looks suspicious, it's going to throw up a warning. It's not going to let them do something bad.
Right. And what about, that's with respect to computers, but what about with mobile phones that are also connected to the to a Wi-Fi network?
So cell phones are also a concern, obviously. The first and most important thing to do on your phone is to enable some sort of a lock code or biometrics, that's fingerprint or Face ID or something similar, so that if you lose your phone, you're fairly confident that the contents of your phone have not been compromised. And that's going to be important just so that, you know, if you go for a walk in the park or you go to the beach and you lose your phone somewhere, it's bad because you got to replace the phone, but you haven't created a security breach through that loss.
Okay, many of our practices have surgeons who work in multiple practice locations. They perform surgery at different hospitals, and as such, they almost rely exclusively on their phone for information with respect to their surgical schedule. One surgeon once told me that if it's not on my phone, it doesn't exist. What else do surgeons need to be careful about for both cybersecurity and also general HIPAA compliance?
So different practices have different policies around email. It's important to check those first. As a general rule, and I think this is probably a universal recommendation, do not send any PHI or any health information to or from a personal email account, because those are going to go out over servers to your main provider and hop anywhere on the internet before getting where they're going. And there's no way to control that. Email is not encrypted. And so if you were to send or receive PHI from a personal account, that would definitely be a source of concern. And again, the practice account is more a question of what the policies are for your particular practice. But in general, you should think twice before sending PHI over email. SMS, so that's the native text messaging protocol that when you go to your phone's messaging app, is inherently non-secure and not encrypted. That means that anyone who can get in the middle and intercept that message can read it. And so you should be sure never to send PHI over SMS directly. And instead, you can use one of many custom apps, either provided by your practice or recommended by your practice, that provides and guarantees end-to-end encryption.
Interesting. So what would be an easy, cost-effective step that you can recommend for any surgical practice that they can implement right away, right after finishing to watch this video and sharing this video with their staff?
So I would say if you don't have it turned on already, talk to your email provider and turn on two-factor authentication for all email addresses within the practice. Two-factor authentication basically means that it's not enough to have your password. You'll log in with your password, and the system will come back to you and say, okay, we've sent a security code to your email address, to your phone number that's registered for this account, and you have to enter some sort of a code to complete the login process. And imagine someone steals your email or guesses your email password. They try to use that password to get into your account. The first thing it's going to do is email you, and that's the real you, with this confirmation code. you'll see that code come in. You say, hey, I didn't just try to log in. First of all, you're not going to provide it because you're not in the middle of a login process. It's also a signal to you that your password has been compromised and lets you change it. So it's a very effective way of locking down email accounts. And locking down email accounts is critical because email ends up being the main gateway to a lot of your logins elsewhere, right? Imagine your bank account. If you're trying to log into your bank account and you forget your password, you can say, I forgot my password, and the bank will happily send a reset password email to or link to your email address. If someone has control over your email account, they can click that reset password link and get into your email. And once they're in your email, then they can do anything they want in many ways. They can get into various accounts. They can send spoof emails or phishing emails as you. And so if you can lock down the emails with two-factor authentication, that's a quick and easy way to really enhance the security of an organization.
Jack, thank you very much. Any final messages or words of advice you want to get across to our viewers?
Just to say that it's good to acknowledge to everyone that security is going to add hassle and friction and annoyance to our daily jobs.
Right.
We've gotten used to this at the airport back when we used to fly, where we would put up with delays, take off our shoes. Remember those days? Take off our shoes, take off our belts, and this was all to increase security at the airport. And we put up with it because we knew it was important, and it was important for safety. And I would say that the healthcare security is really no different. When you're asking people during training or just around the office to do things intentionally that are going to make their jobs harder or more difficult, getting their buy-in is really, really important. So, so the idea is to train staff with empathy, recognize that these policies can get in the way, but the idea is to do things that will help us all sleep better at night, knowing that we've locked the doors and the windows.
Jack, thank you again. We often say stay safe and healthy, but stay safe, healthy, and also cyber secure. Have a great day, and thank you very much for sharing your insights and your knowledge.
Thanks, Justin. It's been a pleasure.